Well, good afternoon, and welcome along. It is another edition of the Soulful House Mafia. Tuesday evenings, the second and fourth Tuesday of every month. That's a great start, isn't it? Welcome along, everybody. Myself, Andy Ward, in the hot seat, and today I'm joined by three incredible guys. They are responsible for much of the music you know up and down the country. They have got some tales to tell. And before we go any further, I want to say thank you for being here, and thank you to everyone who's come back to check out the recording, because we know it isn't always convenient for you to catch us live. Without further ado, let me go to my panel and say welcome along to Mr. Lee Wright, to Spoony and Chrissy T. Welcome, gentlemen. I want to say how very proud I am to sit here talking to you three guys. You fill me with a true sense of pride to call you my friends, and I'm looking forward to the conversations we're going to have. So thank you for being here. Lee, I'm going to come to you first. You, alongside Craig Bartlett and Mark Wilkinson, help us put together this Soulful House Mafia ting. Tell us what you are hoping to get from these two gentlemen this evening.
No, I think it's just going to be interesting to hear different perspective of how the two scenes sort of clashed, for want of a better word, and one sound boy had to die, I think. But no, just how the UK thing really took off, and just how it was through their eyes, really. I think
Okay.
that's going to be interesting.
Well, there's a whole heap of story before we get to that point, and these two guys were there to help create that story. I'm going to come to Chrissy first to let us know how his story began on the Soulful House circuit, and very briefly his history, if you can, because as I say to everybody, we need an interview in its entirety for each individual person. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the music scene.
So I mean, it was I've always, as a kid, just as a very young kid, I always had a transistor radio, one of them little pocket radios. So I always was interested in what was being played, whether it be, well, back then, because I'm an old boy compared to everybody here, I'm probably the oldest here. Back then, it was, you only had like BBC, very limited, radio stations. So it was nice to, look forward to the top 40 every Sunday. So I've always had an open mind regarding when it comes to music. And so with that, started DJing at my school disco at 12, and then progressing on to like clubs that we'll talk about later on, I presume, as well as doing disco classics and then going into the garage scene. So yeah.
Wonderful,
well,
wonderful.
People, I'm sure.
You skipped over that very briefly, but we have got a great deal of time this evening to cover it.
You said brief though, so I thought, okay.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for being for being concise. Concise is a word that I know isn't in this gentleman's vocabulary. I got to start off by putting him on the back foot. Welcome along, Spoony. It's a pleasure to have you, bro. How are you?
Put me on the back foot.
By asking for some concise information from you, because I know you can tell a good story, my friend.
Yeah, I can when I'm given the time, but as I haven't got a lot to give, I mean, my introduction to Soulful House, brought up in East London, in Hackney at the time. I had a real eclectic mix of my taste in music. It went from, Madness and Blondie and the Specials on one hand, to right on the other side, it would have been John Holt, Bob Marley, Barbara Mason, and Calypso, because my mum was from St. Kitts, and I just loved everything in between. And then when I started to find my own sound, it tended to be like a soulful based. Now, whether that was, rap, whether that was R&B, whether that was the real early types of house music. And then I started DJing, and, somehow just found myself wanting to play soulful house music predominantly. That doesn't exclude other stuff, but, there's a lot that went on behind that. And Lee and Chrissy T definitely have chapters in my book and my story along that journey as well, of which I will share. And not all of them will be good stories. Yeah.
Okay, so it is a book of many chapters, and I didn't make any notes, and I don't really know where to begin. So, Chrissy, do you want to tell us about your memories of the London scene? I mean, pick a year, mid-80s.
See, that's one thing. What you're going to realise with me throughout the course of this evening is I'm not very good with time periods.
Okay.
Okay, only because I spend too much time just enjoying that moment, and I don't actually document it within anywhere in my mindset. It doesn't register like that.
Okay, so you mentioned about your age, if you don't mind me asking. How what year were you born?
68.
Okay, so you've only got a couple of years on all of us. I think Spoony and I are very close, and we've all got a few years on Lee. So talk about leaving school. Yeah, 15, 16.
Right, okay, so leaving school, I was very fortunate. I grew up in a place called Forest Gate in East London. There was all different types of music being played when I was growing up, from Fatback, New Shoes, Lyra Burgess, Loose Ends, Morgan Heritage. There's reggae side. And growing up, I used to love a sound clash. Like the Jamaican sound systems. I used to love that. I used to attend them quite a lot. That's out of school, yes. But also I used to go to a lot of football matches as well. So the terraces, what they were listening to, it was, something completely different to what I've ever been introduced to before. So I latched on to that, which was nice. It was basically the rave scene. In essence, it was M25 motorway. So I went to a couple of them, and what was nice about that, I got to see DJs in their, let's say, learning their craft at the time, but not knowing what direction they will be taking, and then later on playing side by side with these DJs. Your Groove Rider. We've done a residency with him at a place called Mumbridge on a Wednesday night, and that ran for about 2-3 years. And straight after that, we launched Club Zoo. Well, the twins, Bobby and Steve, obviously, launched Club Zoo, and that's where my first real residency was. Because I've never owned turntables, so it's a case of what you see is what you get from whenever you come to listen to me. I didn't buy a pair of turntables till I was late 30s.
Wow.
Just thought, I don't know. It's just I always thought that it's the first time you're hearing it. It's the first time I'm doing it. And then when I did purchase turntables, I was too busy trying to recreate what I had at home back in the club, and I used to miss it, and I used to get it sweeter at home. So I said, you know what? I'm abandoning this again. I got rid of them again, but I've gone back again.
Brilliant. Well, it's a similar story for everybody, I think, with the music that we listen to and the musical tastes. So you mentioned, Spoony, that you started DJing. Memories of your first gigs that you used to get out and about at? You went under your government name, right? Is that correct? Initially?
Oh, you know what? I actually Spoony. It was a nickname that I had, and that was the name that I started DJing at, because at the time, everybody on our side that was playing, the kind of music I was, had a sort of handle or a DJ name or a street name or whatever you want to call it, and mine was Spoony. So, but some of my early gigs at local youth clubs, I think they really shaped me. Playing to your peers, people that you went to school with, your classmates, the people that you hang around on the estate with. So that was really my first audience. And then coming off of my estate and doing a big gig, it was a big gig at the time at a youth club called St Mary's, and that was one that really sticks in my mind, because I, like Chrissy, had spent some time practicing a showpiece for my set, and how I was gonna start my set with my fellow sound members at the time, Steve and Wayne. And when I got there and actually did it exactly how I wanted to, I was like, right, the rush of adrenaline was one that I wanted to try and recreate as many times as I possibly could. And I was only, I don't know, 15 or 16 at that time, still at school, still in sixth form. and that was like some of the early gigs, you know. But I can then still forward to early times on London Underground pirate radio station, which I was actually playing a lot more soulful house at that stage, before the incarnation of UK garage, or until I got really affected by UK garage. But again, you know, there's that conversation we're going to delve into a little bit later on.
So we're talking mid 90s, 93, 94 kind of period, I would say, around about that time. Lee, we've discussed this at length in the past, but 93, 94 in Leeds, just remind us exactly what you were doing.
Carnage.
That's 93. So yeah, I mean, we're just starting to. I've transitioned because I'm playing a bit of like, yeah, not rare groove, but funk and soul and touch of acid jazz in with some of the other house music that's there. But that was my way of not being in the rave scene, because I wasn't really a raver as such. But then once I got my head around the Nervous New York and the Basement Boys and those sort of grooves, then that was it for me, because it was up tempo and it was just a bit of a different sound. So Strictly Rhythm, Nervous New York, Basement Boys, and there was no looking back after that.
So that's the sound that you became synonymous with, Chris. And you mentioned Bobby and Steve. Tell us about your connection to those. How you all came to be running together, so to speak.
Okay, all right. So we all grew up in Forest Gate in East London. They're like 8 streets away from me. They're slightly older than I, but I used to hang around with their brother quite a bit. You know, you go to your park and you just meet up with other guys, and their brother David used to be one of those people. And around growing up as a teenager, one of them was Funkadelic. Now that sound system, and you used to get people like Lennox Lewis there, and that sound system showed me everything about a party vibe. Inside, I mean, some of my best nights have been when I've been involved in just stringing up. What I mean by
Box Boy. Hey, can you hear me okay, Spoony? Yeah, you're not glitching, are you?
Mine's glitch. Chrissy's glitching a little bit.
Chrissy is glitching. We're having some issues with your feed at the moment, Chris. I'm afraid you got to stop downloading all those movies in the middle of the conversation.
Yeah, he didn't get that.
Yeah, he's frozen. He's moving now. Yeah.
You know, the mad thing, I was watching an interview earlier, and someone had this exact same problem. I was thinking to myself, why didn't they sort this out beforehand? And now it's happening to me. You see, being in judgment, and now it's come back around. So you were talking about the sound system, the funkadelic, the sound system, and being a box. I think you were saying you were like a box boy, right?
Yeah, but not for them at all. I mean, but they showed me what a vibe was to hold in a house. You know, you string up boxes and so forth. So that was in sound system days. And then the Twins, they started one which was called Zoo Soul Bit, and I used to go to their raves, and the amount of classy people that just used to be there, and I was just hooked for life. Do you get what I mean? I got bought into the whole ethos of what they were playing, and it was just pure entertainment for me. And by then I just started hanging more with them out of the, you know, just on a social type of way. And then sooner or later, I got, I think it was more when we were doing Muntbury's, and that's when I got eased in and started doing like warm-ups and getting the night ready for them.
Okay, so who would have been some of your DJs? You mentioned the likes of Groove Rider in the rave scene when you were playing out at these places.
Right,
Name some of the DJs who you would have looked up to back then.
Froggy for sure. Who else was I listening to? A lot of radio DJs as well. Obviously Greg Edwards, and obviously the pirate radios there as well. WR. Rodigan, definitely. there's loads. There's loads. Chris Hill.
Yeah, so this is more back end of the 80s that we're talking about for yourself.
Yeah.
More or less. Right.
Yeah.
There's so much history, and
Yeah.
deserved, as we always say, of an interview in its own right. But
one key thing.
Go on.
Derek Boland was an institution for me. So
Okay.
Derek B. So I used to do a night called at Bentley's, and he showed me what proper entertainment was, what putting two records together and just messing around with it. It's like, but back then, everybody from Forest Gate, Canning Town, that side of East London, everybody congregated there on a Thursday night. That was him and Froggy. That was a hot night to be at, to be honest. But that set the stone to say, you know what, I wouldn't mind doing some of this. Yeah, I can do this.
Brilliant. Okay,
Properly.
so into the conversation now, and we've got quite a few people with us. I don't want to interrupt you guys while you're speaking, but we've got a fair few of our friends who are coming in and saying hello. Got to send a shout to Craig, to Daryl, to Audrey, Danny Woods, Yvonne also saying yes, Bob Marley and John Holt, Jane Harrington, and the Iceman. Colin Williams sends a big shout out to Spoony, as does I think I saw Sean Samuel giving a shout out to You'll Never Walk Alone. So, giving a props out to Spoony there, and the other guys are shaking their heads, football guys. I want to skip the conversation forward to the sort of era that we tend to focus on in this conversation, the mid to late 90s, the golden era of the Soulful House scene, how many of us became quite close on the circuit. We all got our little foothold in different parts of the UK. Lee up north, obviously Chrissy in London. Spoony, did you ever hold down a residency yourself? Apart from, of course, Twice as Nice, but in the early days, did you have any other residencies of notoriety?
Not really. I mean, I used to sort of move a lot with Rob Atterson. So I used to do a lot of warm-up sets with Rob back in the day, and then a little bit of Lyndon C as well. But my first, it's an interesting one, that sort of mid-90s, and Chrissy may or may not remember this, but I was desperate to have the tag to say I was a resident at Garage City, and I wasn't, but I managed to secure a deal with Michael, who was Bobby and Steve's partner at the time, really, that I was going to play once a month for 6 months, so I could call myself a monthly resident. And in my head, I was like, how I could use that as leverage for all the other things that I wanted to do. And what is really interesting, even more interesting about that story, and I know Chrissy's not going to remember this, at the time I was working in IT. And what I did, I sold the twins and Michael for the office a laptop computer and a laser printer. And I took part cash as payment, and part of the deal was that I would have a once a month residency at Garage City, because I said to myself, that is going to be worth way more than the actual funds for the equipment. And basically used that to springboard myself. I did a guest slot on their Friday night radio show. Then I was able to tell all other promoters that this is what I was going to do. And it just really, very much snowballed from there for me. And that's where, funny, at that time, within maybe a year or 18 months, UK Garage was the biggest thing in the land. It happened that quickly, but I genuinely was a Soulful House lover, and wanted to play on Garage City.
Yeah, because way before the UK garage term came about, we brought you up to Birmingham and you played for us on a Friday night at Release the Pressure.
Yeah.
Well, what did we call it? Release? No, we just called it Release. Gary Dillon put it on the Friday night, and I had just started on Choice FM, and so I used to use the radio show as a springboard for that Friday night. So all the guys that were coming into town would come on the radio show, and so we called it the pre-release showcase. So that's that. You're going back to '97 there. So the UK, and I've said this on many occasions, UK Garage, the name, it's a little bit later than that, isn't it? Really, it kind of came to fruition. Would you agree? Because you are kind of an aficionado, right?
Yeah, well, apparently. But what I'll say is these things happen. It happened so quickly, and I actually believe at times it was happening simultaneously. But because we weren't recording stuff in the way that we do now, we were very much, as Chrissy said, we were just enjoying the moment. The chances are it might have been coined 2 months before or 3 months after, but I can guarantee you it would have been around that sort of late 96, 97 time. Because if I listen to I've listened to a couple of old sessions that I did on London Underground, it would have been around that 96, 97 time. Exactly when, I can't say, but we were definitely doing our thing prior to the phrase UK Garage. Absolutely.
And so Chrissy, as stalwarts, if that's the correct phrase, of the purest US Soulful House sound at Garage City, there was a resistance that you really didn't want any of it to be played on the Saturday night in Bar Rumba. Is that fair to say?
Resistance. It was a different style. It wasn't the style that was being played in Bar Rumba. It wasn't the style that was. Don't forget, Garage City was before Bar Rumba. It was, Joe's, then Podium, and then Bar Rumba. So you've got a heritage of music coming through there. For us to be playing that inside there, I reckon, it would have been a wrong move. I think most definitely. But I would not say that it was. Someone sat down and said it's not to be played in here, because that'd be silly, because we would never be able to play George Morel's Groove. Those tracks they were big under, on the UK scene, or even what's the one that like Anne Nesby, Mousse T's. Can I get witness?
Can I get a witness? Yeah.
So they were, to me, they were big tunes. Am I right?
Yeah, totally.
They were massive.
With the big one of the big turning points that kicked up a whole heap of fuss was the Tony Humphries interview, where he said he wouldn't play Rosie Gaines Closer Than Close after he found out that it was a UK garage record. Do you remember that?
I remember it clearly, and it's one of those where I think DJs sometimes back themselves into a corner they shouldn't, because it should actually just come down to playing a good record or not playing a good record. Because I know that typically when Masters at Work done a remix of the Braxtons, The Boss, that was not designed for UK Garage. But let me tell you, when that record was out, it was one of the biggest records you would hear in a UK Garage night. I don't think for a second that Roy Davis Jr. and Pevan Everett designed Gabrielle to be played in UK Garage clubs. But I reckon it got more adulation being played as a UK Garage record than it did as a US Soulful record. But for me, it comes down to one of two genres, good music or bad music. So we just said, you know what, we're going to pick the best and play it and let it all mix in. And really, for me, I think that what I tried to do and what I wanted my USP to be was that I was going to pick the best soulful house records and blend them in with UK Garage, so that my UK Garage sets just had a real sexy vibe to it from top to bottom.
And let's face it, if you're a producer and you can land in both camps, do you get what I mean? If you've got both sides playing your track, no matter what speed it's being played at, well, why not? If you can, why not?
Indeed.
What I found was we were doing our thing, and then I wouldn't really say the two-step sound initially. For me, it was the more skippy sort of. They'd taken the top end of our thing, and you had the tough jam sound. What I would say was the tough jam sound, which and then the next stage was the two-step sort of MJ Cole sound, which was a totally different sound then by that point. But I do think, and then you had, even in between that, you had like the Byron Stingley, so that they call it like Hoover or
Speed garage.
you know, yeah, it's well, that was the real speed garage, and then it went into the two-step. So I think there was a few steps to get to two-step.
Yeah, but you're talking. It's to discuss it like this. It actually fills me with sadness because we're kind of washing over a whole era of incredible music. You're talking about a 3 or 4 year period,
Culture as well.
and to
Yeah.
and to go from Tough Jam all the way then to two step, you're missing out some amazing. The scene, it became a way of life, and I don't know who just said that about a culture. I mean, that whole thing, and we're probably getting ahead of ourselves because before it got to the dizzy heights of what UK garage became, we were still reveling in the US soulful house being the buzzword up and down the country. Some of the best nights, and after playing at Garage City, John, you then got to guest at many other spots. Did you? After that, how did the entrepreneur kick in and the blag get you into the other spots?
Yeah,
By
no,
the way, Jonathan, I know that was a HP LaserJet 4 that you sold.
good quality.
Just be
I stand by it. I mean, because the funny thing about that is Chrissy, I think, was working in IT at the time himself. So Bobby and Steve were like, I remember it clearly, right? I remember it clearly, just like, at school when you're 1 or 2 years younger, you remember the older boys, but they don't always remember you. So I was the one that was wanting to impress. And I never forget Bobby and Steve were like, all right, well, we're not sure, but we need to speak to Chrissy about it. And I just went, when they speak to Chrissy about it, he's going to go,
nah.
Oh yeah, this is good, boy. This is good. Because I knew it was good. Yeah, with Andy, with regards the master plan, yeah, listen, I think it worked swimmingly well. I knew I was a competent DJ that wouldn't freeze when I went on the radio on the Friday night. That I'd been to Garage City enough times as a raver to know what they played and what they liked. Again, so I wouldn't freeze when I got behind those decks at Bar Rumba. I couldn't wait to get on there and say, I'm as good as these guys. I can play. I can make your crowd dance. I know I can. So yeah, and it just, like I said, it went from there. And we'd already done Birmingham. I'd been up to Leeds. We were already doing lots of stuff on the M4 corridor in Reading and Swindon. So we're already kind of making a bit of our name for ourselves anyway.
Great.
As what? Name for yourself
as the Dream Team and as Spoony.
Oh, right, I see what you mean. Right, yeah.
Okay, so the heyday, because Garage City goes back, as you said, Chrissy, and I'm always hesitant to try and gloss over the history of something with such heritage in such a few words, but I can only talk from my own perspective, getting to come and also, like Spoony, being a regular DJ, one of the only regular DJs outside of London who got a regular spot, and always exactly the same as Spoony. I always remember yourself, Chris Williams, were always so complimentary about when I used to come down and play, and I think it had to be the highlight of many of our calendar to come and play behind those decks. How did it get to be so revered amongst the cool crowd, as you say? Was it Bobby and Steve's personality, the network of people that they believe? Because everything about it was just correct.
It stems back from what I used to love, i.e., that party atmosphere. Bobby and Steve know how to create a party atmosphere, and to have that week in, week out. If you had a rough day, rough week at work, or things that you can just go there and release and just hear quality tunes. Especially when it first started, there was a lot of disco classics within the Soulful House as well. Do you go? I remember when we were at Joe's Brasserie behind Selfridges, and that was just like a sweatbox in there. It was, and we knew we could take it how we wanted to go with it because we had no boundaries. Do you get what I mean? Obviously, it was classed as a kiss club, but we had credible people at the top looking after things. Do you get what I mean? So it was. So we knew we could take. And then when we moved to Podium, It was raw still. Do you get what I mean? We still wired up boxes. We didn't use their in-house club system. We used to have Joey J set up there for years, kind of thing. So we wanted that raw sound with it as well, and that stage appeal. Do you get what I mean? It wasn't like a console, like you walk into a booth door. It was steps and a table. You need to get them in a reel-to-reel there, that machine there. And I like that rawness. I love all that. Do you get what I mean? It doesn't, the polished look, it's nice, but you look like you don't have to do much. You can just, but you can look busy behind there.
Lee and Andy, if I may, I want to jump in there because Chrissy's just reminded me of something. I say reminded me. I've never ever forgot it because it was a real important point in our timeline. And when I say our timeline, as in the Dream Team, and Chrissy just touched on a point there about the party atmosphere that Bobby and Steve used to create, or I could actually say that they do create. There's something about the chemistry of two of them and how they put it together. And with Michael, they put on unbelievable events. And one Friday afternoon, Timmy, Mikey, and myself went to the office when they were on Shaftesbury Avenue, in the upper bits there in central London, and we sat with Michael and we was talking about our plans for the Dream Team, and he said, "Look, what you guys have got to do, you've got to create a buzz, you've got to create a hum around yourself that people are going to want to be around you." And he said, "Look at Bobby and Steve." He said, "There are big name DJs out there, bigger names than those guys, but they create such a buzz and an energy that everybody wants to be around them all the time. And you guys have got to do that." And we left the office, walked down the stairs. Remember that really narrow staircase? Yeah. We went downstairs back onto Shaftesbury Avenue, and we looked at ourselves and we was like, we've got to create a buzz. We've got to create a hum. And that stuck with all three of us. And then I think if you listen to Dream Team shows on Kiss, when we're on Galaxy, when we're on Radio 1, there's an energy that makes everybody feel comfortable, makes everybody feel a part of it. And then your music delivery ends up being something else on top of it. But I just thought it's important to put that in there because and
let's not forget that Friday night, their Friday night show, for I don't know how many years, 13 years as part of that radio show, putting that together with them as well. And we were able to bring that, what we used to, especially when we had Club Zoo on a Friday night, we used to go there straight after the show. So you can guarantee that we're carrying that vibe into that nightclub, and everybody's on that same vibe on their way down to the nightclub. They're in their cars with it on, and it's just a harmonious atmosphere once you get there. And they're able to, from when they were doing early sound systems, they've always had that. They've always had that ability just to raise everything around them. You know what I mean?
What they do,
just create a buzz. Yeah. What I love about them as well, it's natural.
Yeah.
It's them. That's who they are. Do you know what I mean? They're not like a begging friend. It just deviates towards them. That's it. Mm-hmm. But and that's for their party atmosphere. That's why I've always stayed so long, and always at a drop of a hat, whatever they're doing and whatever they ask me to do, I'm there because I know I'm guaranteed to have a good time.
Mm-hmm. Well, you would have heard us talk, both myself, Lee, and Craig, with others over the last few weeks about the incredible times that we used to have in Miami, legendary times. Yeah. When did you personally start going to Miami? Okay, sorry. Around about 96, 97, yeah.
Spoony. We used to go to New York seminars first.
Okay.
So we went to a couple of them first, and then did you get me? Then New York cinema. That was called a New Music Conference, I think. But obviously, Miami is Winter Music Conference, so then it got moved or whatever, blah blah blah. And yes. 96, maybe 94, maybe
around about the same time.
I think we were there. We went 3 years before we said, you know what, maybe in 2 years, and said, you know what, let's throw a party over there. Let's throw two parties over there, and then it became a yearly event. And then what we did on the back of that, we said, let's bring some of our because one thing about them and what Zoo's about, we're all approachable, so. It's not as if to say we just came up and just say, look, the people that come to our events, let's bring them along too, as opposed to, you know, just it's about us being out there putting in a party for the Americans to witness what we can do. You know, we're going to bring our atmosphere with us, so to speak. And that was nice to see, just regular punters that come to our nights to say, what? Yeah, I'll have some of this. We've heard about Winter Music Conference. I'm coming. And through that, we've, over the years, friendships have lasted decades. Do you get what I mean? So it's nice at how it organically happens. You know what I mean? It's a natural process. And then obviously, UK then was just there. Everywhere you looked, it was like being down Oxford Street. It was like you're just seeing everybody from, you know, who is anybody in the music industry.
Mob-handed, most definitely mob-handed. And a legacy was created there because, as Spoony's just mentioned, as Lee will attest, something that was very infectious that rubbed off on us all as we all came back from those parties. We were all welcomed with open arms. We then tried to recreate that same vibe in our own specific genres, in our own areas, and the way that you deal with other people. To hear the way that, you know, the legacy of Garage City and the zoo parties, it really does fill you with such warmth. Lee, I think you'll agree that's I think that's a fair recap of that whole scene, isn't it, down there, really?
Yeah, I think it was the template that we sort of looked at that and then went, how can we get the good elements of that and do it in our own backyard? I think. Definitely, for me anyway. Mm-hmm. And it was also exciting. It was just exciting, and it felt like it was our own little club, but we wanted to show everybody what we could do. So I think, you know, definitely. Something I wanted to put to Spoony. How did you feel the crowd in the early UK scene differed to the US crowds?
Wow. I'm not sure if I consciously noticed a difference. Maybe slightly younger, but not significant enough to speak about. I don't know. They were just music lovers. I think back then people would very much go. There were scenes, so people would go out because they knew it was going to be a good party and there was a nice lineup. But I don't. Yeah, I don't know if I really noticed a difference in that way. There obviously would have been, but it wasn't something that registered consciously with me.
Okay.
Yeah, well, for me, if I was to answer that question, we were the early original, you know, UK house sound, UK garage sound. For me, the two crowds were absolutely identical. I've got a lady here commenting, Claire, who used to come and party with myself in Birmingham from like 92, 93, around that time when the UK sound was just starting to, before it was even, you know, coined the phrase, termed, and we were playing those vibes, 93, 94 kind of business. And so then that crowd progressed slowly, and as the energy got a little bit faster in the music, and so we all just moved with the scene. And it wasn't until the back end of the 90s, and then when it wasn't a coincidence that it was at the same time that the Dream Team blew up and sort of commerciality hit for a lot of the majors getting involved, and Spoony can talk in with authority on this. That's when the scene kind of changed and the crowd got a little bit younger. Would you say that was correct, Spoony?
Yeah. And again, it's funny. We have to just go back one notch on the dial, because Garage City, and I can't tell you which birthday it was, but they obviously had their residency at Bar Rumba, and they had a birthday come up, which meant that Bar Rumba was going to be too small, and they went to Coliseum to have the birthday. But rather than leaving Bar Rumba empty, they did Lords of the Underground. And I did the first ever Lords of the Underground, which was at Bar Rumba, 300-400 people. And by the time they'd come around to doing the next one, Lords of Garage music had grown so much that the next, I think we did 2 Lords of the Underground at Barumba. The third one was at Camden Palace, which was about 4 times the size. So again, that's how quickly UK garage grew. The demand for the sound grew so quick. Like, I'm going to say it's overnight. It wasn't overnight. It might have been 12 months or 18 months, but that's some growth to go from a first time ever at Barumba to selling out Camden Palace, which was, over 2,000 people. And that was as the Lords of the Underground.
It's funny when you look back now, because we hindsight is such a powerful tool, but as you said, we were so immersed in the scene at the time that it was difficult to really appreciate exactly what was going on. And then before you know, I always remember specifically being in Twice as Nice, and this is towards the back end for myself of being involved in the UK garage scene, when Posh and Bex came down. I'm sure you'll remember that. Dane Bowers had brought Victoria, and David was tagging along through the crowd, and I don't think I've ever been in an establishment where the buzz that rippled through that crowd when people saw them walk into that club, I've never experienced anything like it. It was absolutely insane. And that was like the peak, wasn't it, John?
Yeah, not even Dave Courtney at Ministry.
No. But
Definitely not Dave Courtney at Ministry.
What was interesting about when David and Victoria came to Twice as Nice is that even though they were massive celebrities at the time, they weren't bothered. When I say they weren't bothered, people didn't trouble them. People didn't make them feel uncomfortable. They weren't walking around with lots of security. They came and they just chilled out. But Twice as Nice had played host to some real A-listers at that time. Puff Daddy, Wesley Snipes, I think Samuel Jackson had been in there. The Spice Girls had been to Coliseum in their entirety. All of them together had come to Coliseum before. Busta Rhymes hanging out in there. So people were used to seeing A-listers at Twice as Nice. Absolutely, they were. But you're right, that the music had grown so much at that time that if you wanted to be out, the in place to be was at Twice as Nice. And I am proud to say, and I'm a little bit biased because I was a resident DJ, but I'm proud to say how heavily involved I was in that event. And I'm lucky.
Let's also not forget, it's a Sunday night as well.
Sunday night, man, a Sunday night. And I'm lucky that I think in my time as a DJ that I can say that I was a regular guest at Garage City, which was at its time the biggest club night in our scene, and then I was resident DJ. I would go as far as saying on the urban scene, Twice as Nice was the jewel in the crown of UK music in a club night, for it being a Sunday, the size of the venue, the guests that were in there. I think you'd go and you'd struggle to find a more impactful weekly club night in the time that I've been DJing and listening to music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree. I definitely agree with you. Chrissy, around the same time, did you notice, did Garage City, because we're getting towards the back end of the 90s into the turn of the 2000s, where eventually Garage City would actually stop as Garage City. Did you feel that the UK garage scene had an impact on the Soulful House scene? Did you yourselves notice a drop in numbers?
No. I think because we had fingers in other pies. So Soul Heaven was almost running side by side with Garage City, so to speak.
But that's a couple of years after. I'm talking about because Soul Heaven didn't actually start till 2001. I'm telling you, I'm not asking.
It's all 95 for Chrissy.
Yeah, but that's
just 1 year.
2000, 2001. So go back a little bit when. Why am I hearing myself coming back?
95 for Chrissy.
Okay, right.
It's 1 year.
2000, 2001. So go back a little bit. Why am I hearing myself? Why am I hearing myself coming back?
95 for Chrissy.
Okay, it's from a loop. Yeah.
What on earth is going on?
Yeah, 2001. So go back a little bit.
Why am I hearing myself?
Why am I hearing myself coming back now?
Is that me, Andy?
I think it is. Chat.
Yeah, it's me, Andy. You know what I've done? I've opened.
What on earth is going on?
Andy, 1 second. Stay there.
Thanks, Johnny. You threw me off key, man.
Right, how's that?
That's perfect now. Oh my God, the acid's
Sorry,
coming back. The acid's.
I opened up to look at the chat, and that window was open. Apologies. I just saw Daryl B throw in a Spread Love project, which was an iconic UK garage night. Big name.
Oh, I got to put my air conditioning on.
The impact of Twice as Nice, the longevity of Twice as Nice, is why I still think it's the jewel in the crown. Anyway, sorry for
and what about the Cosa Nostra?
Well, again, there was. I mean, you've got La Cosa Nostra. You had Pure Silk. You had Sun City. Horny.
But they were on a weekly.
So none of those were weekly.
No, Horny played both. Yeah.
But when you look at the size of Twice as Night, of the venue, and the fact that it was a Sunday night, I suppose you could give an honourable mention to Horny, because Horny was on a Thursday night, and that was weekly. But like I said, when you look at all things considered with Twice as Nice and how big the venue was, and how packed it was, and the fact that people would travel from all over the country on Sunday to come to that venue. You know, I know people that weren't even into UK garage that used to come, because the vibe, the atmosphere was so electric that they were like, you know, I don't normally listen to garage, but I need this energy.
It's incredible.
Would you say it was more urban? The term urban, I don't really particularly like that. But
let's not use it.
Okay.
You know what? The whole scene as a whole it took me back to those the Sound Clash days. It had that elements of that, you know, black culture, like deep black culture within it, and that's why I fully respected it, because it had a roots, it had a journey. You know, it didn't come here. There was a transition. There might be blurred lines along the way, but we are here now. We're in Twice as Nice, and this is what you're getting. You're getting this culture back from way back in the 70s. To me, that's what it seemed like. You know, where people are making the effort in a sense of, you know, they're buying latest arms. They're going shopping. When girls are going shopping before they're going out, that's when you know you're lining up something right. The men will always follow.
Here's the thing, right? And it's interestingly that you talk about, you know, it being urban in that way, that so many times that word is used to sort of demean, control, and put down black people, or what black people are trying to do and what they are achieving. And I absolutely think that it was something that should be lauded, respected, and given all the adulation it deserves, in the way that people speak about Hacienda. And they don't ever talk about Hacienda being in the terms of being drug fueled for white people. But whenever you talk about an amazing club night that may have been for black people, even though it wasn't exclusively for black people, that we should be proud of what we contributed to the British culture. And I think it's so woven into British culture that it should no way near be ignored or not be respected, because it was an amazing thing that was happening. A truly amazing thing that was happening.
No, for sure. There's a generation, there's a couple of generations that's grown up on Twice as Nice, and that's, you know, and I remember being by the bar as Twice as Nice, and it was almost like 3 generations at the bar. So yeah, the old man, the granddad, the son, and you know the grandson, all in a row, buying drinks for each other. You get what I mean? So,
but let's not forget as well, that was
on the house thing. I've still got to say, big rest in peace to Steve, because he was a big part of that as well. Steve Sutherland.
And let's not forget they also did used to represent the Soulful House in the second room as well, didn't they? Twice as Nice. I had the opportunity to go there on a few occasions and play the more soulful house. You know, the original sound of what I was known for as well.
But remember, the you know, Steve Gordon, the promoter, he loved his Soulful House music, And
yeah.
I think one of the reasons he liked me being his resident is because he knew that I also loved it. So my sets were never going to be too hard or not sexy. There will always be sprinklings of these real records that would have been played at Garage City. I reckon I would have played 3 or 4 records every single set that would have been played at Garage City. But I would also, they would have been coupled with productions from, you know, Steve Gurley or MJ Cole or Wookie. But I do believe that the soulful element of these guys, the production in these guys, could easily sit alongside Kerry Chandler and Masters at Work. Bearing in mind that, you know, Kenny Dope Gonzalez gave the master sound a bit of a bump, and that sound was one of the original sounds of UK garage, just like the Basement Boys, just like
drums,
Snap
man.
Production.
Those drums.
It was the drums. It was that. So we weren't too far detached away from that. You know, no, I could go as far as saying no New York, New Jersey house, no UK garage.
Yeah, true.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Yeah.
Most definitely. So I was mentioning, and I asked the question, Chrissy, before we got lost in a loop of my own voice, which sent me over the edge a little bit.
It feels like to be us.
Thank you.
The numbers going down.
Yeah, but I was going to say it was definitely UK garage, or that side of the scene, after we'd enjoyed the limelight for so long in major clubs and back rooms. Playing that, so for example, Miss Moneypenny's in Birmingham, not necessarily known for the soulful blacker side of music, but they used to have the soulful blacker side of house music in their second rooms. But then slowly but surely, these second rooms were getting pushed aside for the UK garage sound. So the death knell, if whatever the phrase is, was definitely the writing was on the wall for that sound, because US house
I think
became
within London they had we could accommodate for the people, because there's enough places to go to whatever you're into. Whether it be, so we did. I don't think it had any effect on.
So it didn't in London. In Birmingham, it definitely did.
Either feeling one camp or the other.
And it would have been in Leeds as well.
Up here, I mean, when we think about those big events that, I'd have put on like at Majestic and that, and Trevor Nelson was doing his big lick thing. I know we're not going to use the word urban, but that the between the R&B and the UK garage, it was more or less times up for literally every other sound, unless you were going to go into a very small bar by that point. It was. I mean, I know in London they did have the what was the night that you mentioned, Chrissy? That was in '95, but it was actually 2002. Soul Heaven and things like that. It did go into a next chapter, but really that didn't happen. In the same way, up here. It was.
Don't forget, in London, West End, there's you could split in. There's clubs, next door to each other virtually. So we had enough people to go to wherever you're into. So I don't think it really affected us. There were other nights, not just our nights, still functioning. So.
But you never turned your back on the soulful side of the music, did you, Spoony? And you still champion it now when you were playing your residency in Ibiza, very even more diverse range of music that you share now out and about, don't you?
Yeah, because I guess I think that a lot of people became aware of me, or more people came aware of me because of UK garage, but actually I have and always had such an eclectic taste of music. And I suppose that at the start of my professional career, I very much had one foot in the camp of soulful house music. And actually, when I listened back, as I said earlier, to my shows that I was doing on London Underground at the time, my shows were 80-90% US soulful house. But I just loved good music. And when I started hearing some of the UK garage that was being made at that time, and more of it was being made. And I'm talking, you know, Grant Nelson from here in the UK and Justin Cantor, obviously. Then he started making stuff with Matt Jam Lamont, and then Tough Jam started making records. But it had an amazing groove, an amazing bump and energy to it. But this is what I was playing, you know, all that stuff on Nice and Ripe, and you know, mixed in with some of the sounds that were coming in from America. And then there was a point where you couldn't quite tell whether it was US or UK made. And then we were away. You know, some of the early Suburban records, Tommy Musto and Victor Simonelli, sounded just like Grant Nelson, or Grant Nelson just sounded like Tommy Musto and Victor Simonelli, TMVS.
I used to, one thing that I maybe had a gripe with, maybe. I mean, there were people I thought that actually you could tell.
Oh, what a good bit for him to go.
And there are people that were.
He was just going to draw some licks
Chris,
on
missed that again.
Take it back, because you just glitched on us. Come on.
Yeah, the one thing you had a gripe about, Chris.
Come on.
Yeah, now, in a sense, you could tell who had. I always used to think you could tell who had one foot in the US camp.
Gonna get.
And there were some that used to pretend. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Don't tell me that. I don't know what's going on here then. I'm normally all right. It's just you guys, man.
No, we're all good. We're all good here.
You hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. You were just glitching.
Okay, cool. Right. But I never, it was the speed. I couldn't, that hearing certain records way down here. Do you get what I mean? I thought, oh, you know, that used to upset me.
Up there.
That upset me too. I didn't like that either.
When I say up, sorry, I mean down here on the pitch control. That's what I mean, down here on the pitch control.
Plus 10.
And then that used to, I used to go, oh no, this isn't me, man. You know, and but there used to be some intelligent producers. I used to love Groove Chronicles, not because I know him. I used to think Noodles. It's just clever. Obviously, MJ Cole. I think they just used to. They sounded like they had an open mind in it. Do you get what I mean? Those producers that I liked.
So here, not necessarily. Sorry, Chrissy. The interesting thing there about the plus 10 was that you'd only really notice that when you were playing a vocal record, and the chances were those records weren't traditionally made for the UK garage scene.
Totally.
Whereas when Noodles and MJ Cole were making their records before, because they were already produced faster, they didn't need to be pitched up.
Yeah, totally.
Again, that's down to the DJ finding the way so they don't have to play it at 134 if it was made at 126.
That's what I'm saying. Those are the DJs. To me, they're fully really in that UK foot. Do you get what I mean? They couldn't come over this side and do and try and pretend that that's what they can do as well. Do you get what I mean? Because it's almost like there were certain DJs that respected that US music.
Thanks,
still.
Thank you.
Certain people that that respected it, and you wouldn't be, you know, right the way down to the bottom on the pitch control. That's my only guy. I couldn't to hear it sung like at that speed. It just
and some people did jump camp, didn't they? They didn't try to straddle both the scenes. They just said, right, US house is US garage, however you want to call it. That's old news now. I'm fully investing myself into this, and this is where I'm going.
Yes.
And then it was a good few years before all of a sudden that I'm turning my back on that. You know. But
one of the main DJs I used to think that could do it in a certain way and have both feet firmly and earning money there and earning money here, and he's a Yank, and that was Disciple.
Yeah,
he was able to. I don't know. He was able to, but even again, he's like the Alex Ferguson. He can. You know, to hear him now is a lot tougher sometimes, but wherever he is and wherever he goes, he can adapt to what style. But he's got a knack of making it sound like he belongs. He knows what he's doing. Do you get what I mean? Whereas others,
But he was. I mean, I saw an interview with him on the True House Stories, but you know, he really did immerse himself in the UK scene. He was here that much. You know, he'll describe areas of the country, and you'll think that's a man who spent a lot of time.
Totally. I mean, that's but But what I liked about Disciple, or what I loved about Disciple, it's open-mindedness. And I don't want to be pigeonholed. I can do this. This is the way that Norman, I grew up on Norman. I love the fact that he can put on that hip-hop hat, he can put on that Philly hat, he can put on, you know, that R&B hat and feel comfortable in those lanes. Do you get what I mean? Well, with Disciple, he can play peak times at both. Whereas other people, maybe he would... he might be on slightly earlier, but his name's on the bill. But he will play peak times at both these venues, and you know it takes a certain know-how to do that.
My belief was that I would want you to have played a main set at Garage City, and then leave Garage City, and then go around the corner and play a main set at UK Garage Garage event. That would have been, because for me it was about the craft and the art of DJing, not being only pigeonholed into one scene. And I'm still the same. I do my brunch stream on a Sunday, and I play, I mean, right across the board. I'm playing reggae, I'm playing funk, I'm playing disco, I'm playing rare grooves, I'm playing club classics, because it's the art of DJing, not really being bound and defined by one particular genre. But that's enough about me.
Well, now let's talk a little bit more about you. How did that go down? How did that go down at Ocean Beach when you were doing that? Were you that diverse at Ocean Beach, or was it a little bit more up tempo?
Not. I mean,
because it's easy to do it. It's easy to do it with no one dancing in front of you. Come on, let's be honest.
Yeah, listen. With regards the demographic, there's certain areas that I wouldn't have gone into, but the club owners absolutely trusted me implicitly to entertain their audience. So I said, look, I have as much a vested interest in this club, this night working, as you guys. I have a reputation built over 20 years of being able to make people dance, but I'm sometimes going to take the audience in a direction that you might not get. But you have to trust me with this, because this is my specialist and chosen subject field. So I don't come and say what bar to have and what alcohol to have, and you know, you go and get a sommelier to come and choose the wine. That's not my field, but music and making people dance is. So, you know, when I started playing some of the club classics and Soulful House there, they were like, wow. But I'm saying, but look how people are reacting to it. And there you have it.
So how many seasons did you were you running into?
I mean, geez, pre-COVID, we were 6. I'd done it. The first year, the first year they opened, I didn't do it. The next year, I did 8. I did the whole of July and the whole of August, and it went down so well. The next year, we then went weekly. So I did, 5 years fully, 1 year partly, and then we would have been there again. And it's, you know, it grew and grew and grew and became a real popular event on the schedule, considering it was an in-house promotion as well.
Mm-hmm. That is truly incredible, and I want to draw my attention again to everyone that's still with us watching. Thank you, everybody. Deep in conversation, so I can't stop and give you all a shout out, but we do appreciate you being here. Yvonne is saying that Sunday brunch is the bomb. So how are we doing for time, Spoony? Have you got to go off and do some celebrity interview or anything, or are you okay? Have we got you?
I did it before we came on air, so yeah, I'm cleared now.
In the jungle? Are we going to see you in the jungle or on Strictly?
No, that's, you know, Strictly, I've done that already. I did that in 2006.
Did you?
This is what I'm saying, Andy. I'll just keep it moving. You know what I mean?
You know what? I was thinking to myself, I'm going to ask him about Strictly, and now you're saying that. Were you really on Strictly Come Dancing?
Yeah, I did it in 2006.
Where did you come?
Can't remember.
No way. That's, mind you, that's 15 years ago. That's insane.
Yeah.
Fair
I did that
play.
a long time. I mean, the thing is, I've done a lot of those, you know, Weakest Link, Mastermind.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, let me say that we're watching TV. Me and my eldest, he's 13 now, and the TV's just on, and next time we've got through the hole, get through the wall,
Through the hole.
And I saw you. And I said, and all you had some green leotard thing, and we had to jump through a water, otherwise you hit in a pool of water. And I said to my eldest, look, Louis, I know him.
Look at that idiot.
Well, no, we joke about this, but I mean, off of the back of being a great DJ and having a little bit of business news up here, knowing how to present yourself, knowing to pounce on opportunities when they arose, you've afforded yourself the opportunity to rub shoulders with some truly important and impressive people, and so you are a next level now, aren't you? Really, I mean, if you were in this hot seat, you'd probably be chairing this a lot better than I would. So
No, you're doing a fantastic job. And you know what it was? It goes back, right? And when Chris, it really struck a chord with me when Chris spoke about always having a radio in his pocket. I'm a little bit younger, so I didn't have a transistor radio. I had one that was like plugged into the mains, right? But I used to always listen to, when I think about to Kenny Everett and Chris Tarrant, and a little bit later on Chris Evans, and I used to listen to the way that these guys presented their radio shows. And I said, I want to present my radio show like them. I want it to be informative. I want it to be entertaining. However, I want my music to be different. So once I had my slot on Pirate Radio, and then that went on to Kiss and Galaxy and ended up at Radio 1, it was always about presenting the music and the show in a way that people don't normally present our kind of music. And I think that just opened doors. And then, why would I not go and do Celebrity Mastermind, or why would I not be on Strictly Come Dancing when I see people who are on those shows because they're infamous? At least I felt that I was on there because I genuinely brought something to the table. I wasn't famous for being famous sake. And, fame is just one of those things, Andy. I look at it as though we're all worthy. We all belong. We've all contributed so much. Why should we not be doing these things?
Of course. Well, do you want to now publicly apologise live to the world for stealing my radio show?
What, the Galaxy one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know the thing about that, right?
Network, Galaxy Network.
So the backstory.
Cut.
The backstory with this, and as one door closes, another one opens, right? Is that they actually approached us at least a year beforehand, and we went to Kiss because we wanted to stay at Kiss, and we wanted Kiss to syndicate our Friday night show. But what had happened is that garage music had reached such a critical point that they were also using it as a stick to beat us, saying that it's too London centric, it's not being played anywhere else, it's only a London scene, so we can't play it. So we at the time felt a little bit of pressure that we needed to spread our wings. And the second time Galaxy came back to us, we had a meeting with Kiss and we said, look, if we didn't say this, and we didn't give them an ultimatum, we went in and said, look, we really want to have a syndicated show. They said no. We literally resigned on the spot. And then we went and joined Galaxy. And then 6 months later, Radio 1 came to us. The happy story to that is not for you, Andy, I'm afraid. But when we came off of Galaxy, Steve Sutherland got that slot. So I would turn around and say that, there you are. You handed the baton over to us. We handed it over to Steve, and we kept it moving for everybody. So, Andy, sometimes being a pioneer is hard.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm glad that you actually said that. Thank you. And just saying respect to Steve for mentioning his name again. Glory days, absolute glory days. And so, Chrissy, you kind of disappeared off the scene for a while. Would you say that's a fair comment?
To most, it's really weird when I talk to people. I never. Yeah. Okay. Right. Was I week in, week out in nightlife, club life? No, I wasn't.
This stupid.
You see, that's the thing. I've never been about that limelight, being out there. Right. That's the forefront. I'm always that guy back here. I'm just me plodding along and doing what I want to do and enjoy, most of all, doing what I want to do. So I was a week in, week out, but no, 3 boys came along, married, and built a lovely home, lovely kids, beautiful wife. She's outside there. I've got to say that. I'm contracted to say that she's outside there.
Punching, ain't you?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, and then but was I still talking to people? Yes, I was. Was I still doing my little bits? Yes, I was. still do my little edits and passing them to people that I care. Not necessarily looking for big time. It's just here's something for you I think you can use. But you know, I don't see myself as saying, did I disappear? No, I didn't disappear. I was just further than where I was before. That's it.
Okay, but now
Doesn't make any sense.
But now enjoying being in the limelight a little bit with some guest slots here and there and pushing your name out and about.
Well,
we were honoured to have you at Vocal Booth a few years ago.
Oh yeah. It's a shame for the Storm though, but I love what you created over there. See, this is what there's. When I was younger, I was about 18, 19, there was a guy called Shoe Doctor. He's like a two-step DJ.
Yeah. Still DJing, you know.
Of course. Me and him grew together, Martin and his brother Polito. So Polito used to had this shoe repair shop, and up above there used to be myself, Idris, and Quincy, and we used to be there. And Boogie Boy, do you know Boogie Boy at all, Richard?
Yeah, Boogie. Yeah.
So okay, right. So Boogie, I used to be amazed on what he could do with a turntable. You get what I mean? So we all used to be in there, and it's all memories like that. What keep me from, like I said, I can't even tell you what time of my life that was, but there's another period and a moment that I've enjoyed along the way. And look at Idris now; he's what he's today, and you know I've been blessed to have good people around me, and you know, and keep me grounded. So I'm glad for that. I am glad for that. Trust me. The
stories that you could tell about rubbing shoulders with all these people. Lee, you and I, in the wake of these legends, we kind of pale into insignificance, really. But we're part of the story, right? We're all part of the story.
We are.
And you're doing big things now with the Soulful House DJs on a Sunday. You see that taking off, right? Bigger now when we get out of the lockdown.
I don't think that it will. The genie will go back in to the bottle. You know, I still think that streaming will continue. It might be in a slightly slimmed down version, but no, for me it's been great. Really back on it and got the vibe, and I've never stopped DJing. It's just been, you know, it's more bar centric, and you know the club gigs are not there in the same way, unless it's a one-off or it's you know, not a reunion gig, but you know, clubbing is just not the way that it was. So you know, you take the good gigs where you can. Mm-hmm. That's how I look at it. I mean, I've always promoted as well, so, and that you kind of have to go with whatever the style is or what's hot. So it's just pitching it in right, really. But I'm having more fun with the music than I've had in a long time.
Good.
I'll tell you one thing about me, so-called being away. I was able to reopen my ears again. And going back to stuff that I used to listen to many years ago, I grew up listening to, and it all seems more clearer and they mean more now for some reason. I don't know, maybe because I'm getting older, I don't know. And I think going forward, especially with lockdown as well, I feel that that's going to creep back into how I perform or DJ or do any form of streaming, because some of the old bits have been forgotten, because there's no longevity in music no more. I just think that a track just lasts 2 minutes, 3 minutes, if that. You know what I mean?
Because I think when you spend an afternoon leaving from home, traveling a few miles to a record shop in the town centre, having to queue to potentially not get the one you want because they sold out. When you get that record, you look after it, you treasure it. Yeah. It means something to you, as opposed to hitting send or download and you've got it, and you do that, you don't have that same relationship with the music. And it's funny because I mentioned my my stream that I do, especially the one that I do on a Sunday, and even though I play most of the music digitally, a lot of the records I can remember the story of acquiring it in the first place. So like I said, you have a different relationship with the records that you would have gone and bought back then.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, definitely, most definitely. I actually miss reading just crap. Just
Yeah.
reading. I mean, it got slimmed down on a CD, but definitely just picking up the vinyl and just reading who was on keyboards, who was where. And I get that. I feel lost without that. It could be. But then that could be a good thing. I could be handed something or sent something and not realize it was that person. And but I always give everything a fair cop. You know what I mean? If I like it, I like it for what it is. Not so much because you are you and you've given it to me. It doesn't mean I necessarily have to like it and have to play it. If that makes sense. I've never been.
Totally. What's your relationship with brand new music, Spoony? Are you finding a lot of new producers now? Are you interested, or are you still immersed in your heritage of what you love and what you grew up with?
It's really interesting you say that, right? Because the last sort of 4 weeks, I've been having this conversation with myself that have I become that person? Have I become that musical snob that says old music is better, right? And do I find myself spending as much time listening to new music as I did? I think that the fact that I wasn't playing out every week, the fact that I don't have a weekly radio show means that there was an element of it where you had to stay on top of what was coming in. Where at the moment, and for the last year or so, because my streams have been really me looking back and celebrating the great days of house music, not just UK garage, just house music. And I actually, a couple of weeks ago, went and played music that was beyond even my Soulful House days. Jelly Bean Benitez came onto the stream and I played Was Dog a Donut, and then started playing music from that era. But I found myself being a little bit of just loving listening to the pure production of Barry White and the Love Unlimited Orchestra and the harmonies of the Jones Girls, and just wondering, where do I go to find that now? And maybe because of COVID, because of the restrictions, because we're being deprived of so many of our loves, that I've sought solace in another form, and music has been a consistent in my life. And I'm wondering if, once the doors do open back up, will I feel more comfortable searching and listening to new music, where at the moment, like I said, some of the classic stuff that I've been listening to is just really enriching my soul and making me feel that I'm not suffering at this time.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's deep. That's deep, man.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. I think also more so why I'm listening to older music and going back to what I grew with and used to. I think because you hold memories to those periods of times, and they're fond memories, and it gives you that warm hug and that glow of hearing those tunes again. And maybe a part of me wants to bring that back out again. Do you get what I mean? And give those warm vibes again. I think, speaking to some producers, lockdown has been productive for them, and what they so-called promise is nice to hear. The proof will be in the pudding when we hear it. But obviously the live side of it all, the band members and everything, it's they've been hit hard, so they just can't wait to go out again. I imagine so before and earn some money, obviously. But I like that, like you said, the Love Unlimited Orchestra. That's me. That's me. All that Philly sound as well. That's all me. Strings, harmonies, vocals. I grew up on songs. Do you get what I mean? No one seems to want to be writing anything new anymore. It's always a cover on something else. And no one wants to be creative and come up with a new song. I noticed that as well. But most definitely, I'm down in that camp for. There's some nice new bits out, but they go side by side with what I've been listening to now, and that's what I'm going to do. I think going forward.
Mm-hmm. So will you be rushing to jump on a plane anytime as soon as you can, Spoony, when the opportunity arises, or have you got comfortable in not having to do that now?
Listen, I'm definitely a grafter. I'm definitely not someone who's going to shy away from the work and the responsibility of being an international DJ. However, I'm not going to, at this stage of my life, beg it. I'm not just going to get on a plane for the sake of getting on a plane. If there's a good gig, if it's a good event, I definitely want to be a part of it. I'd love to play Sunsi Beat. I've not done Sunsi Beat in Croatia. I've not done vocal booth for a few years. Obviously, my residency in Ibiza, I'd love to have a full summer there. But if there's going to be restrictions and, you know, people's basic human rights being taken away, then I'd rather stay where I am doing what I'm doing, because music for me has always been that expression of freedom. And it seems like a bit of a contradiction if you have to jump through so many hoops.
I've been to one event where you know, they were nodding their head, and security's went, no, none of that here. So what do you mean you can't? You can't move your feet even. You can't even shuffle, man. And that's not.
Nah,
that's not natural for me. And me as a DJ, my whole set would have to be
listen,
around music.
I'm gonna stop this conversation because I don't want to go down that whole route talking about that. I don't want to get into that. I'm conscious of keeping Lee Wright more than anybody away from what he's got to do on this Tuesday evening. But I know we can sit here just chatting, you know, between ourselves, because it's been a long time since all four of us have spoken. We scratched the surface on the subject of where US and UK house met. I think you'll have to agree, because it is a conversation that could go on for weeks. Would you all three of you agree on that?
On
that it's a conversation that can, it's all right, my computer's almost tried to restart itself then. We scratched the surface. We kind of covered the basics of it, but it goes a lot deeper. There's and with the Soulful House Mafia, what we're trying to do every week or every 2 weeks is mention names, mention scenes, and just encapsulate that era or a period of time, the golden times for us. And there's so many ebbs and flows, so many twists and turns in that journey that we can all come back and discuss this again at another time if that's possible.
Yeah,
definitely. And we want your favorite tracks as well. Andy keeps saying he's going to pull out these tunes, but next time you've got to come back with what moved you from that period, your 5 favorites. I think, is it 5?
What Soulful US Soulful House?
Yeah, I think maybe 3 or something, but we'll do that another time, because you know, because what I was going to do, the idea was to just grab 2 pieces of vinyl, show it to you, and say, what does this remind you of? Because we're all going to have a memory of it, and they don't even need to be big tunes. But you know, week after week, we're going to be bringing different guests on, and you know, so Spoony, tell us your Sunday streams. What times are they for anybody who may be living in a cave and has not seen them?
So if you're based in the UK, it's midday till 3 o'clock on a Sunday on Twitch. I made the decision a while ago now to start streaming on Twitch, because the other social media platforms were basically kicking us off because they didn't have arrangements with the various record labels and licensing. So started streaming on Twitch. I guaranteed to do the brunch on a Sunday between midday and 3, but I am going to start doing 2 more shows midweek. One's going to be a tribute show where I'm going to give it up to one particular artist for the entire show. I've already done Prince, Michael Jackson, Luther Vandross, Shaka Khan, Whitney Houston. So I've got another series of those coming up, which is going to start with Shalimar. Shalimar is going to be the first tribute show that I do, and then I'm going to do a more house-based show that's going to cover UK garage, soulful US stuff, some Afro stuff, some brilliant music coming out of Africa as well. So I just cover everything that's over, say, 118 BPM on one show. The Sunday show I do, where I go from, like I say, club classics from loose ends all the way through to Abyssinians playing reggae, and I play some calypso because I know my mum would be listening, so I have to play some soca and calypso for my mum, and then of course the soul music. So that's me really, and that's what I'm going to do 3 times a week. But the main show is the brunch on a Sunday between midday and 3.
Beautiful, thank you very much. And Chrissy, you mentioned about the family life. Now, what is your regular 9 to 5 at the moment? What takes up most of your time?
So I work in a company called Global that owns various radio stations, and look after IT. I do IT stuff for them there.
You sell printers to anybody?
That's a master
You know what?
plan.
That was a good model. You know, HP LaserJet 4. They're reliable. They're reliable.
And you know the funny thing about it is I was saying that I'd love to have one of those now because the new printers are always breaking down.
Yeah.
And then when the ink runs out,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
so expensive.
Expensive, I know, yeah.
Oh man.
Well, if
Yeah,
I was
so
stopping you talking about COVID, I'm definitely stopping you talking about bloody printers. Lee, Soulful House DJs on a Sunday over on Mixcloud, right?
Monday, Mixcloud, 12 till 11 or 12 till 12, depending on who's doing the last slot.
Right,
And
okay.
it's good vibes all the way.
I'm
live
gonna
on Mixcloud.
Yeah.
Do you want me to come and drop a Soulful House set through the eyes of yours truly?
Yeah, definitely, man. I mean, I was gonna have to get a Bosman to get you on there. Do a Bosman transfer. I ain't got the funds.
You know what? I want to say this right that and I can't remember what year it was. It might have been.
Yeah, I'm not the only one.
Sorry,
I'm not the only one.
2014 or 2015. I'm doing way better than you, Chris. Right, I can narrow it down. And I was desperate to do a Soulful House set, so I asked Alex at Southport Weekender, as well as doing my usual UK garage stuff, to open one of the domes, and he let me play. I played a 3-hour US Soulful House set to that audience. It was, I had such a good time, such a good time. Fat Freddie M contacted me after, and he said, you know what, I didn't know that you could do that. And I'm like, this is actually what I started doing. This was me before the other stuff. Do you know what I mean? But it's always nice to just yes, go back to your roots, so to speak. Not that I ever left them, but yeah, I love playing that music, man.
Yeah.
show them all how it's done. Well, guys, there's been a hell of a lot of comments that you can go back and read another time. I want to thank everybody that's been here for the comments, and everyone on the recording. Please feel free to drop something. The guys will leave you a message, and maybe we might even be able to persuade Spoony to give you a birthday shout out like he did for me last year on my 50th. I was really appreciative of that, my friend. Guys, conscious of taking up too much of your time, I can't thank you enough for being here. I'm going to press a button that unceremoniously kicks you out of this Zoom, unfortunately. But
See you soon, guys.
I'm going to go and say goodbye to the rest of the crew. Thank you so much, yeah?
Lee, enough love.
See you later.
These guys. Thanks again, yeah.
See you later, Chrissy, you superstar.
Yes.
Johnny.
And they go just like that. Wonderful. I enjoy sitting here being totally unscripted, and it's very easy to get lost in the moment and to just lose track of where the conversations are going. But like yourself, I could sit and listen to those three guys all night long. And we do it every 2 weeks. In 2 weeks' time, we have got Mark and Jamie, aka the Slamming Boys, and they'll be joined by Mr. Craig Bartlett. I think I've got that right. 2 weeks' time, anyway. Next Tuesday at 7 o'clock UK time, something that's quite important as we are getting ready to come out of lockdown, as you are getting ready to come out of lockdown. Food for thought, a conversation that many of you might need to have with yourselves, you might need to have with your partners. And the topic is, I haven't got a drink or drugs problem, or have I? Deep, right? That's going to be next Tuesday at 7 o'clock, the 1st of June. Which reminds me, it's bank holiday. I'm sure I don't need to tell you it's bank holiday, so have yourselves a fantastic time. Let me just go and have a look and say thank you to these people who have been liking, following the page. I can only see the last 10, so I want to say thank you to Jackie, to Dan, Suzanne, to Pugs, to Jean, to Mark, Anthony, to John, and also to Yvonne. Too many names to give a shout out to who were all commenting. Truly do appreciate that. We're doing our very best to slowly gain followers. We're doing our best to slowly increase the numbers on the page. So we have the Soulful House Mafia group that you can join, and also the Soulful House Mafia page if you would like to give that a like. I truly appreciate it. That's just about it for myself. Again, have a fantastic bank holiday, and I'll see you next Tuesday at 7 o'clock. You be good to yourselves now. See you later.